Today, I'm gonna show you how to open up one by one the components of centrifugal pump. So let's go. Firstly, loosen the bolt and nuts on the casing and bearing housing using a 70mm spanner and remove it carefully. Use ball peen hammer and brass to separate casing and bearing housing. If tight, use slotted screwdriver set by applying force to separate each part of body and casing, then separate slowly and carefully. Next, loosen the nut and bolt on the stands. Then, loosen and remove the impeller washer to open the impeller. Open and place the impeller slowly and carefully. Separate the stand from the bearing housing slowly using a slotted screwdriver and put it aside carefully. Then, loosen the bolts on the bearing casing using a 70mm spanner. Next, remove the flat key using locking pliers slowly. Then, loosen the bolt on the bearing casing and carefully remove it. Next, use a 3-jaw puller to remove the shaft sleeve slowly and carefully. Next, remove the shaft sleeve slowly and put it aside. Lastly, punch the shaft using a ball peen hammer and brass, then pull and remove the shaft and bearing. Put it aside slowly and carefully. Next, I'm gonna show you how to reassemble the centrifugal pump. Firstly, punch the shaft using a ball peen hammer and brass to push and reinstall the shaft in the bearing housing slowly and carefully. After that, install the bearing casing and tighten the bolts. Then, check the shaft to make sure it can function and rotate smoothly. Reinstall the flat key by tapping it with brass slowly and carefully. Install the bearing casing and tighten the bolts in the bearing housing. Next, apply oil to the inside of the shaft sleeve and shaft to smooth out movement. Then, insert the washer and discharge flange and install the shaft sleeve by pushing and hitting it into the shaft using brass slowly and carefully. Install the flat key at the shaft. Then, carefully lift and install the stands on the bearing housing. Then, tighten the bolts using a spanner. Next, carefully lift, install the impeller on the stands, then install the impeller washer and gland nut and tighten using an adjustable wrench. Lastly, install by carefully combining the bearing housing that has been installed on the casing. Then, push and tighten the casing and bearing housing tightly using a brass and ball peen hammer. Next, install and tighten the bolts alternately so that they are balanced and perfectly tight. That's all from us. Thanks for watching.